Welcome to the 33rd Annual Investigative Reporters and Editors Awards Luncheon. Today, we honor the very best in investigative journalism from 2011. Today's 15 winners were selected from more than 430 entries. And once again this year, there is excellent work to celebrate. In large print, online, an IRE award goes to John Sullivan, Susan Snyder, Kristen Graham, Dylan Purcell, Michael Leary, Jeff Gamage, and Rose Ciota of the Philadelphia Inquirer for Assault on Learning. The judges call this story local reporting at its highest level. 5 reporters spent over a year looking into violence in Philadelphia public schools. Despite the district's message that violence was down, the Inquirer demonstrated the school system underreported violent incidents and routinely failed to protect teachers and students. An intervention program was unmasked as nothing more than paper shuffling. Reporters overcame the obstacles of closed environments and sealed records and put a face on a violent school system and its victims. An IRE award goes to John Sullivan, Susan Snyder, Kristen Graham, Dylan Purcell, Michael Leary, Jeff Gamage, and Rose Ciota of the Philadelphia Inquirer. In medium print online, an IRE award goes to Michael J. Behrens and Ken Armstrong of the Seattle Times for Methadone and the Politics of Pain. Reporters searched through hundreds of thousands of documents and databases to prove the decision by the state of Washington to use methadone as a narcotic painkiller was discriminatory and dangerous. Despite fierce opposition from officials, the paper was able to prove more than 2,000 people overdosed on the cheap but unpredictable drug the state was pushing to save money. The paper showed that while 8% of poor adults were on Medicaid, they represented 48% of the methadone deaths. In swift reaction to the story, the state issued an emergency health advisory to more than 1,000 pharmacists and 17,000 licensed healthcare professionals, warning of methadone's risk. An IRE award goes to Michael J. Behrens and Ken Armstrong of the Seattle Times. In small print online, an IRE award goes to Matthew Doig and Anthony Cormier of the Sarasota Herald Tribune for Unfit for Duty. Backed by database analysis and on-the-ground reporting, the Herald Tribune exposed questionable backgrounds of hundreds of Florida police officers. The newspaper analyzed more than 22,000 cases of police misconduct in Florida and showed a system flawed at every level. Reporters found nearly 1 in 20 active law enforcement officers had egregious cases of misconduct, but still managed to keep their badges. The newspaper's story prompted results even before the story ran. Florida's governor ordered an inquiry into violations of law uncovered by the reporters, and 2 police officers became targets of an investigation. An IRE award goes to Matthew Doig and Anthony Cormier of the Sarasota Herald Tribune. In large multi-platform, an IRE award goes to A.C. Thompson, Ji-Sun Lee, Marshall Allen, Ardi Shahani, Mosi Secret, Krista Kelman-Schmidt, Al Shaw, Jennifer LaFleur, and Robin Fields of ProPublica, Joe Shapiro, Sandra Bartlett, Coburn Dukehart, John Poole, and Suzanne Reber of NPR, Lowell Bergman, Carl Biker, Andres Cedille, Aaron Rath, Rainey Aronson Rath, and David Fanning of Frontline, and Ryan Gabrielson of the Investigative Reporting Program at the UC Berkeley Graduate School for Postmortem, Death Investigation in America. Most Americans believe the nation's morgues are filled with dedicated professionals who are equipped with high-tech, state-of-the-art tools. This series found a profession plagued by a widespread lack of resources, a lack of national standards, and a drastic shortage of qualified doctors. Reporters show us death investigations are a patchwork of different systems that bear little resemblance to the work seen on television shows like CSI. In this revealing multimedia package, we learn death investigations are often flawed, and innocent people go to jail, or the guilty are allowed to go free. An IRE award goes to ProPublica, NPR, Frontline, and the investigative reporting program at the UC Berkeley Graduate School. In breaking news, an IRE award goes to Michael LaForgia, Cynthia Roldan, and Adam Playford of the Palm Beach Post for Violent Felon Went Unnoticed. The Palm Beach Post raced the clock and the competition to unearth compelling details in the deaths of two children whose bodies were fished out of a South Florida canal. Reporters were able to flesh out details about the suspect and the victims within days of the crime. Playford uncovered key court documents 30 minutes before the courthouse closed, and using his iPhone, snapped pictures of hundreds of pages of documents as clerks were shoving him out the door. The records revealed flaws in Florida's child welfare system and showed how officials should and could have done more to protect the children. Judges call this an exemplary case of how investigative reporters can dig deeply on deadline. An IRE award goes to Michael LaForgia, Cynthia Roldan, and Adam Playford of the Palm Beach Post. In Student, an IRE award goes to Ioana Macris, April Cunningham, and Caroline Courtney of the Daily Toreador for the $1 Million Bust. 3 student reporters took on powerful Texas Tech University alumni over a sweetheart deal to build and then lease back to the university a parking garage that wasn't needed. The students got the state's attorney general involved in forcing documents to be released under the Texas Public Information Act. They exposed the cozy relationship between members of the same fraternity who built the private parking garage and then leased it back under a contract that put the burden of renting the spaces on Texas Tech and its alumni association. The students showed great initiative and stood their ground in the face of public criticism. An IRE award goes to Ioana Macris, April Cunningham, and Caroline Courtney of the Daily Toreador. In large broadcast video, an IRE award goes to Brian Ross, Anna Schechter, Angela M. Hill, Rhonda Schwartz, and Mark Schoen of ABC News for 2020 Peace Corps, A Trust Betrayed. After 10 months of work, ABC revealed a shocking story of hundreds of Peace Corps women being raped around the world. Using internal Peace Corps reports, ABC was able to show a systematic failure within the agency and its practice of hushing things up and blaming the victim. ABC not only found many victims, but convinced them to go public.
Jill Hoxmeyer was sexually assaulted in Guyana in South America in 2007.
He dragged me to the bushes and was on top of me, and both of his hands were around my neck, and he strangled me. I couldn't scream. I couldn't really even breathe.
Others in the group nodded in agreement, as Jill told us the Peace Corps treated her as a discard, offering little counseling to help overcome the trauma.
You were given 3 sessions.
Given 3 sessions.
And goodbye?
And a goodbye.
There was no victims advocate for you in Washington?
No.
On your own?
On my own.
This report was in large part responsible for a new law meant to protect Peace Corps volunteers and whistleblowers. An IRE award goes to Brian Ross, Anna Schechter, Angela M. Hill, Rhonda Schwartz, and Mark Schoen of ABC News. In small broadcast video, an IRE award goes to Lee Zurich, Donnie Pierce, Mike Schaefer, Greg Phillips, and Marcy Planer of WVUE-TV for Hiding Behind the Badge. In an 18-month investigation, WVUE-TV exposed and detailed a powerful sheriff and businessman's intricate scheme to defraud taxpayers. Through public records requests and scrutiny of thousands of pages of documents, the team built spreadsheets that proved how they stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from his donors, falsified campaign documents, and took kickbacks in exchange for vastly overbilling the taxpayer.
Our investigation that began in May showed how the sheriff's office reimbursed Hingle for credit card charges. But the sheriff also claimed those same charges on his campaign finance report, which led us to ask if Hingle was raiding his campaign war chest, falsifying documents.
Did you or your wife falsify campaign documents?
Who are you?
Lee Zurich with Channel 8.
No.
Today, an FBI investigation led federal prosecutors to charge Hingle with conspiracy to commit mail fraud and bribery.
Sheriff, can you tell us if you or your wife have falsified campaign documents? If you did nothing wrong, will you tell us? Why won't you answer our questions, Sheriff Hingle?
Well, one thing, I don't like you.
As a result, the sheriff and businessmen pleaded guilty to federal corruption. An IRE award goes to Lee Zurich, Donnie Pierce, Mike Schaefer, Greg Phillips, and Marcy Planer of WVUE-TV. In radio audio, an IRE award goes to Ina Jaffe and Quinn O'Toole of NPR for rising violence in California psychiatric hospitals. When a worker at a California psychiatric hospital was murdered by a patient last year, NPR began looking into cases of rising violence against healthcare workers. The resulting reports found widespread violence against workers by patients who were committed by the criminal justice system. It linked the rise in violence to government policies and inaction by psychiatric hospitals.
And I noticed that blood was coming down my left ear to my left shoulder and body and leg.
And then he saw about a dozen patients standing in a circle, staring at something on the floor.
And I went closer to see what they were looking at, and it was at that point that I realized they were looking at the piece of my ear that was actually bitten off from my ear and was spat on the floor.
Saba had 5 reconstructive surgeries. His assailant, Kai Chang, was charged with attempted murder and felony battery. It was Chang's second attempted murder charge. He'd been found not guilty by reason of insanity on the first one. And for his attack on Alex Saba, Chang was found incompetent to stand trial and transferred to another state hospital.
Because of NPR's work, the state of California has introduced 2 pieces of legislation to address the problem. An IRE award goes to Ina Jaffe and Quinn O'Toole of NPR. In book, an IRE award goes to Jason Berry for Render Unto Rome, The Secret Life of Money in the Catholic Church. Author Jason Berry delves deeply into a topic few have examined, the secretive finances of the Roman Catholic Church. Using background research that takes the reader back centuries, Berry uncovers abuses of the trust of church members by influential bishops who diverted funds into accounts used for plugging Vatican operating deficits or defending priests accused of pedophilia. Berry details how the modern church is systematically closing churches in poorer parishes while at the same time opening churches in affluent suburbs where the weekly take is greater. The author paints a complete picture of a secret network of church financial dealings. An IRE award goes to Jason Berry. An IRE Special Recognition Award for service to the First Amendment goes to the staff of the Salt Lake Tribune for their reporting, editorial stance, and lobbying efforts that help keep Utah's open record law intact. The paper waged and won a battle over the Utah legislature's attempt to eviscerate Utah's open records law. Lawmakers introduced and passed a bill late in the legislative session without much notice, but the paper fought back in 2 months of coverage on the content and the impact of the bill. It offered its content to other newspapers around the state, and in a rare and unusual move, ran strong editorials on the front page. Despite the governor's initial signing of the bill, the paper's efforts and public outcry forced him to reverse his position and call the legislature back into session. For service to the First Amendment, an IRE Special Recognition Award goes to the staff of the Salt Lake Tribune. In special award categories, an IRE medal for the Tom Renner Award goes to Frederick Pleitgen, Tim Lister, Ian Lee, Mohammed Fahmy, Sherry England, Simon Payne, and Earl Nurse of CNN for Death in the Desert. CNN's team faced great personal risk in crossing the dangerous badlands of Egypt's Sinai Peninsula to expose a network of human trafficking and organ sales. The team managed to persuade the hostile tribesmen of the region to talk about their organized kidnapping for ransom and trafficking of immigrants trying to cross from Egypt into Israel.
We arrive in El Mehdia, often described as one of the most dangerous places in Egypt. Only a few kilometers from the Israeli border, a poor, windswept settlement home to smugglers, drug kingpins, and human traffickers. While the camera is off, I ask the chief about the African refugees coming through Sinai, whether they are detained against their will. He makes a startling admission, telling me there are compounds where they're held. He even claimed to know specific compounds that were built with profits from human trafficking. Some refugees are forced to work in the marijuana fields. The tribal chief even acknowledges that women are raped if their relatives cannot pay the massive sums the captors try to extort from them.
The team also procured photographic evidence that suggested some immigrants had their organs harvested before being buried in the desert. An IRE medal goes to Frederick Pleitgen, Tim Lister, Ian Lee, Mohammed Fahmy, Sherry England, Simon Payne, and Earl Nurse of CNN. For freedom of information, an IRE medal goes to Bradley Kuhn, Bob Ivry, Christopher Condon, Craig Torres, Greg Storr, Scott Landman, David Yanofsky, Donnell Griffin, and Phil Kuntz of Bloomberg News for the Fed's $1 trillion secret. Bloomberg News provides a rare behind-the-scenes look at one of the most powerful and secretive industries in American society. In the wake of the near collapse of the nation's financial system, Bloomberg News sought important records from the Federal Reserve about loans made to some of the nation's biggest banks. The Federal Reserve refused, and Bloomberg sued under the Freedom of Information Act. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court, which refused to overturn the lower court's decision. Bloomberg reveals for the first time which banks borrowed the most from the Fed's various emergency programs. An IRE medal goes to Bradley Kuhn, Bob Ivry, Christopher Condon, Craig Torres, Greg Storr, Scott Landman, David Yanofsky, Donnell Griffin, and Phil Kuntz of Bloomberg News. This year, there are 2 recipients of IRE's highest honor. In medium broadcast video, an IRE medal goes to Wayne Dolcefino, Kevin Hurton, and Colin McIntyre of KTRK-TV for constable corruption. Dolcefino and his team expose a culture of corruption among the county's entrenched constables that includes appropriating charity and campaign funds for their own use and allowing employees to commit timesheet fraud. This story engages the viewer with its irreverent style and high production values, but beneath the entertainment is a well-documented investigation.
But where was all that money spent? That's the mystery.
It's shocking, the lack of documentation here and the apparent pressure the county employees were put under to perform for this charitable organization.
We showed accountant Bob Martin the charity's latest tax return.
One of the most glaring errors is the fact that they don't give the detail for the expenses.
You figure Victor Trevino would know since he signed the tax return under penalty of perjury. It lists a Precinct 6 employee named Mary Alice Williams as the charity treasurer. Just one problem. Here's her obituary. She's been dead for 2 years.
Several outside agencies are now investigating several constables' offices. An IRE medal goes to Wayne Dolcefino, Kevin Hurton, and Colin McIntyre of KTRK TV. In medium multi-platform, an IRE medal goes to Corey G. Johnson, Erica Perez, Kendall Taggart, Augustin Armendariz, Michael Montgomery, Anna Werner, Carrie Ching, Ashley Alvarado, Chase Davis, Michael Corey, and Chrissy Clark of California Watch and KQED for On Shaky Ground. Reporters spent 19 months examining seismic safeguards in place to protect California's school children from earthquakes. Reporters dug through more than 30,000 pages of documents, created online maps and databases, and visited schools throughout the state to get the story.
And at this point, we don't believe that any of those projects pose a significant threat.
But some experts, like earthquake engineer and consultant Peter Yanev, aren't convinced.
Obviously, the system is not doing what it's supposed to do.
Especially given this 2006 report, where the DSA itself said some school projects were being completed without adequate testing and inspection, sometimes with dangerous construction flaws.
What that tells me is that we're building schools in California that are not properly designed and checked in the field to make sure they're properly built. That's a problem.
State lawmakers ordered audits and investigations, and new state standards were created. An IRE medal goes to Corey G. Johnson, Erica Perez, Kendall Taggart, Augustin Armendariz, Michael Montgomery, Anna Werner, Carrie Ching, Ashley Alvarado, Chase Davis, Michael Corey, and Chrissy Clark of California Watch and KQED.